Good afternoon, teacher. We are the group number 3, and in this occasion, we are going to make our exposition about the topic 3 and 4.
Okay, the concept of number, it is any signs or symbols used to designate quantities and values or entities that behave like quantities. In this expression of relationship between quantity and unit, and also we talk about semiotics and science systems. Semiotics in the study or signs and symbols use or interpretation. He cares about everyone communication systems and whether verbal or visual. Semiotic investigates how meaning is created and communicate. Its origin are in the academic field. A study of how signs and symbols, visual and linguistic, and create meaning. It is a way of saying of a word and to understand how the landscapes and culture we live in have an impact on everyone of the use and console. Classification. In research, measurement skills are defined by mathematical operations that can use in its manipulations. Nominal, categorical, interval, and ratio scales are distinguished. In an investigation or a patient of group of this, what we do is take measurement that help and understand, evaluate and differentiate the characteristics of people or objects or group of things. Whole numbers, they are due counting numbers and include 0. They do not include fraction and decimal and cannot be negative. And integers, that include whole number and their opposites and can be negative. And rational numbers, they are numbers expressed as two integers, fractions, and the final irrational numbers, they are numbers that cannot be expressed as a fraction of two integers.
Okay, there are 3 types of numbers in our research, which are nominal, ordinal, and continuous. Nominals only label things. The objective of ordinals is to demonstrate order, and continuous ones are used to count and measure. The types of data are continuous and discrete. Continuous are those in which it's possible to see an infinitive number between 2 intervals, for example, pleasure. And discrete, they can only have a finite number in the range of their measurements. Okay, next, a level of probability in numbers. Probability is the mathematical calculation that evaluates the possibilities that exist for something to happen, where chance interviews where 0 is impossibility and 1 is certainty. The higher the number, the higher the level of certain that there is a possibility of an event occurring. Variables and measurable. It's important to have a good technique for data collection, which can be interviews, focus groups, observations, etc., in order to have a good interpretation of data and theoretical methodological approach. And finally, here we have what is a variable. It's defined properly that can vary and is capable of being measured and observed, such as religion, sex, intelligence. It's applied to a group of people that you want to analyze.
Right, right. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the independent and dependent variables. But first of all, we need to know about variables, the definition, because first to start, variables is going to be always adapted to the research. If they're not very abstracted and not regulated, there's going to be missing some parts in the research. And if they're very well extracted and intercalated, the research is going to be facilitated by the researcher, which is going to be very, very fast in understanding for who reads and who is going to make the research. Now, also we have the operationalization, which is that they're going to be linked by the data collection. So it's not only going to be like, okay, we're going to have variables, but the whole the way that we make it is according to the way that the type of data collection that we're using, the methodologies, and all of that. Now, the validity of the variables always is going to depend on the framework that we're doing. So for that reason, we always going to need the forms of taking into account the statement of hypothesis and the problematic situation. If we not using well the statement of hypothesis or the problematic situation, probably the validity of the variables and not is not going to be. Now, for applying the variables, we're going to need some parts, which is, for example, the logic and the knowledge. If you're not well there, we're going to get problems into the research, and the research is not going to be well. Now, my other partner is going to be talking. Next part.
May the microphone.
Good night, combiners. Talk about the independent and dependent variables. Uh, Independent variable in this context, the independent variable will be the characteristics, conditions, or factors that research manipulate or analyze to understand its impact on language or communication. Dependent variable. The dependent variable will be the response, outcome, or aspect of language that is measured or observed as a result of the independent variable. Controlled variable. Controlled variables are those variables that researchers hold constant or controlled to ensure that any change observed in the dependent variable can be attributed primarily to the independent variable. Random variable. In qualitative research, the notion of random variable might be less applicable. These concepts is more commonly used in statistics and qualitative methods. This is describe variables that can take different values by certain probabilities in the probabilistic study. In summary, in qualitative linguistic research, these concepts help to structure and understand how different elements of language and communication may relate to each other under certain condition or context. The next.
Okay, now we already know that we have a lot of variables and we have other types too. So the first one that we have in this occasion is the hypothetical variable, that if they are construct variables by the human mind, they only interfere through their effects or behaviors. For example, we have the intelligence. Also, we have the observable variable. They can be the object of direct observation and measurement. And for example, we have the height or weight. Also, we have the attributive variables. This kind of variables, it's only observed. It represents human characteristics, for example, sex, social, and social position. We have the stimulus variable too. In this occasion, the stimulus variables, it refers to any condition or manipulation introduced by the researcher into the environment. Now we have the qualitative variables the responsive variables, that is, they're the body's response, introduced by the stimulus variables. Also, we have the qualitative variables. They're those variables which express characteristics that may occur or be absent in individuals, groups, or companies. For example, that it's a person is single or married. It's important to mention that it's a nominal measure. Now we have the ordinal variables, that they are variables whose values are susceptible to order or hierarchy. It's an ordinal measurement scale. And we have the quantitative variables, that in this occasion, they are expressed in degrees, different magnitudes or measurements along a continuum. For example, we have the weight. Now, we are going to talk about the causality and latent variables. The causal variable in this is, it's a causal relationship that variables are dependent and independent.
Okay, the latent variables, they are unnecessary random entities that do not present a specific unit of measurement, and therefore any estimation is subject to an associated error. For example, cultural competence in health professionals is a latent variable. One aspect related to the measuring instrument is the ratio between the measurement or items and the constructs with which these measurements are connected. The measurements are considered as main science since what interested the research are the construct or theoretical construction that he used to explain the phenomenon you are studying. The magnitude of say variable is measurement through scale. This is now a true score, and the magnitude of the strength of the latent variable or true score is measurement as the cause the items reach a certain value.
Now,
Okay, here we have scales. Here we have scales and measurement instruments. They are measurement instruments that help identify the different levels of theoretical variables that are not easily observable, which are nominal, ordinal, interval, and radio.
okay, now the nominal scale is one of the most important scales we have. But first we have to know that the nominal scale is going to be used for level the subject study. And for that reason, we can name the attribute to that element in order to make comparisons, make operations, and so that we can classify the observation by using that nominal scales. Then we have the ordinal scale. Then ordinal scale shows the property of the nominal data. Now, it can be like sense if we use it as that. And the automatic operation will make sense, so the order is going to be important. So in this case, if we made a comparison between the nominal scale and the ordinal scale, the nominal scale is going to be based on the name of the level of the subject and study, and the ordinal scales is going to be according to which is most important to the things that are less important. Now, my next partner is going to be speaking about the other types of measuring instruments.
Finally, we will talk about the operationalization of concepts. The Operationalization of concepts is the process of defining and abstract concepts in a specific and measurable way so that it can be observed and measured empirically in research. Thank you so much.
Now, one measurement that it's important mention that we don't mention yet, it's the radio scale. In this scale, the data has all the properties of interval data, and the proportion between them makes sense. For that reason, the zero of the scale is required to indicate the absence of the property to be measured. You can perform multiplication and also divisions. So it was all our presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.